It was a typical fall day in the city of Voronezh, Russia. On September 27th, 1989, the calm was broken by an event that would leave locals baffled and terrified for years to come. What started as a seemingly normal afternoon soon turned into one of the most famous and eerie UFO encounters in modern history. On that day, a group of school children were playing in Levoberezhny Park, an area in Voronezh where children often gathered after school. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the park. Suddenly, a strange light appeared in the sky, drawing the attention of the kids and passers-by. At first, it seemed like a distant star or airplane, but it grew larger and brighter, descending slowly toward the ground. As the light approached the park, it became clear that this was no ordinary aircraft. The children claimed that what they saw next was a huge, glowing craft, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was a spherical object, about 10 to 15 meters in diameter, with bright lights flickering on its surface. It landed silently in an open field in the park. But what happened next is what truly terrified the witnesses. As the craft settled on the ground, a hatch opened, and out stepped three strange beings. The witnesses described them as humanoid, but far from human. They were about 9 feet tall, with elongated limbs and metallic silver suits that covered their bodies. Their heads were small in proportion to their bodies, and they had 3 glowing eyes, one of which was centered on their foreheads. The children and nearby adults stood frozen, unsure whether to run or stay hidden. The beings seemed to survey their surroundings, moving with an unnatural, almost mechanical grace. One of the witnesses described how one of the humanoids carried a box-like object, which appeared to be some kind of scanner or device. Just as the witnesses thought the encounter couldn't get any stranger, one of the humanoids turned toward the crowd, raised the device, and pointed it in their direction. Without warning, one of the children, a boy standing closest to the humanoids, disappeared from sight. Panic set in, and some witnesses fled the park in terror. After a few moments, the boy reappeared unharmed, but visibly shaken. The children later described the beings as behaving like robots, moving with slow, deliberate actions. The humanoids then returned to their craft, which rose into the sky without a sound and quickly disappeared into the clouds. News of the encounter spread quickly throughout Voronezh. Local authorities were skeptical at first, but the sheer number of witnesses, including several adults, forced them to take the reports seriously. Investigators visited the site and found strange impressions in the soil where the craft had supposedly landed, as well as high levels of radiation in the area. The story gained international attention when it was reported by TASS, the Soviet Union's official news agency. The Soviet government, typically secretive about UFO sightings, openly acknowledged the event, lending credibility to the claims. Skeptics suggested that the witnesses, mostly children, may have been influenced by imagination or hysteria, but the fact that so many people saw the same thing gave the story weight. To this day, the Humanoids of Voronezh remain one of the most bizarre and unsettling UFO encounters ever documented. The true nature of what happened that evening in the park remains a mystery. Were these visitors from another world, or was it a collective hallucination? One thing is certain: the people of Voronezh would never forget the day they came face to face with something beyond their comprehension. They say the moon is a reflection of light, a serene and beautiful beacon in the night sky. But what if that light is hiding something darker? something that watches from the shadows, just out of sight on the other side. This is the story of Dalnim Ui Eodum, the dark face of the moon. A legend whispered in hushed tones in the countryside of Korea. A story that warns of the moon's hidden darkness and the terrifying force that lurks within it. Long ago, before the invention of telescopes and space exploration, people gazed at the moon with wonder, believing it to be a place of gods or spirits. But in one village, the moon was feared, not revered. The elders spoke of a dark presence that lived on the far side of the moon, a side never seen by human eyes. They called it Dalnimui Eodum, the embodiment of the moon's hidden evil, a cursed shadow that crept through the night sky, waiting for the perfect moment to descend to Earth. The legend goes that during a rare celestial event, when the moon aligns with certain stars, Dalnim Ui Eodum is able to pass through the veil between the heavens and the earth. On those nights, when the air is thick and the wind is eerily still, people would lock their doors, extinguish their fires, and stay far away from windows. For it was said that if you looked up at the moon on such a night, you might catch a glimpse of something more than its pale glow, something dark and malevolent. The dark face of the moon is not a figure with a face, not a creature you can see and describe. It is a presence, an overwhelming sense of dread, a shadow that fills your mind with terror. Once it notices you, it will follow you, silently, and it doesn't stop when the night ends. It's said that those who draw the attention of Dalnimui Eodum are cursed to feel its presence for the rest of their lives. It creeps into their dreams, invades their thoughts, and slowly it drives them mad. Some say it enters through the eyes, so the only way to protect yourself is to never look directly at the moon during these nights. Others claim that once the darkness touches you, there's no escape. The only fate left is to join the shadow on the far side of the moon, forever wandering in the void. There are stories of those who have gone missing on nights of strange moon alignments, never to be seen again. Their families would find their homes empty, but the air inside thick with an eerie stillness. Some reported hearing faint whispers in the dead of night, as if the moon itself was calling to them. So, the next time you gaze up at the full moon, admire its beauty, but be mindful of what you can't see. For on the far side, in the darkness beyond the light, something might be watching back. Some stories start small, a whisper, a rumor, until they grow into something far bigger than anyone could have imagined. One such tale involves an innocent-looking painting of a child, a painting that would become known as the Crying Boy. In the 1950s, these paintings, created by an artist named Giovanni Bragolin, started appearing in homes all across Europe. The image itself was simple, a tear-streaked boy with sorrowful eyes gazing out at you. At first, it seemed like any other piece of art, a melancholy yet beautiful depiction of a crying child. But soon, strange things began to happen. It started with fires that would break out in the very homes where the crying boy hung on the wall. Family after family reported devastating blazes that consumed everything: furniture, memories, entire lifetimes left in ashes. And yet, as they sifted through the charred ruins, one thing remained completely untouched: the painting, perfectly intact. News spread quickly. Headlines screamed of the crying boy curse, The media latched on to the strange phenomenon, stoking fear. Why did this one painting survive when nothing else did? Why was it always this particular portrait that remained, even as everything else turned to cinders? Firefighters began to notice a pattern too. Whenever they arrived at a home destroyed by fire, they'd often find a copy of the crying boy among the wreckage, always undamaged, always watching. The legend grew darker. Some families swore they could feel a presence in their home after hanging the painting. Others reported strange occurrences, lights flickering, doors slamming on their own, cold spots in rooms. The idea that the painting carried a curse took hold. People believed that owning this art meant inviting disaster into your life. Stories surfaced of people attempting to destroy their crying boy painting, only for tragedy to strike afterward. Car accidents, sudden illnesses, bizarre mishaps. It seemed the painting would not be so easily discarded. The fear was palpable. Households that once proudly displayed the painting now sought to get rid of it by any means necessary. Some burned it in desperate attempts to break the curse, while others sent their paintings to be destroyed, hoping to free themselves from the malevolent force they believed it held. But here's the thing about curses. Sometimes they seem too real to be mere superstition. And in the case of the crying boy, this belief in its power spread like wildfire. However, not everyone was convinced. In 2010, a BBC radio program called Punt PI decided to dig deeper into the mystery. They wanted to find out if there was any truth behind the terrifying tales of the painting. What they discovered was surprising, and perhaps a little less mysterious. The prints of the crying boy they found had been treated with a fire-retardant varnish. This explained why they would survive when other items perished in the flames. But there was more. The string used to hang the painting on the wall would often burn through first in the fire, causing the painting to fall face down on the floor, protecting it from the worst of the flames. A simple explanation for a strange occurrence. But does that really explain everything? Even with this rational explanation, people still speak of the crying boy. The fear remains, and the stories continue to be passed down. After all, how could so many homes with this painting catch fire? Can something so widespread truly be dismissed as mere coincidence? Some believe that curses gain power through belief. In the case of the crying boy, the collective fear and attention surrounding it may have fed into the legend, giving it a life of its own. As history shows, human belief in the supernatural often influences reality in strange and inexplicable ways. Could the sheer mass of people who feared this painting have somehow given the curse the power to manifest? And while the varnish might explain how the painting survived the flames, it doesn't explain why the fires started in the first place. Why did these homes burn when so many others did not? Was the curse merely a trick of the mind, or did it feed on the very belief that spread its legend? In the end, belief has the power to shape our reality. Whether it's a rational explanation or something far darker, what do you believe? I never thought I'd be the one telling this story. My childhood was filled with laughter, shared secrets, and innocent pranks. Most of those memories revolve around my best friend, Matt. We were inseparable, exploring the dense woods behind our neighborhood and dreaming up adventures. Matt was always a little braver than me, always willing to venture deeper into the unknown. One day, when we were about 12, he convinced me to explore an abandoned house on the edge of the woods. It had been there for as long as anyone could remember, shrouded in mystery and the whispers of ghost stories. It was said to be haunted by the spirit of a girl who went missing decades ago. We approached the house just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the decaying structure. Matt, with his usual confidence, pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside. I followed, heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with dust and the scent of mildew. Every step we took echoed through the empty rooms. We found ourselves in what must have been the living room. Matt was drawn to an old, tattered book lying on a table. As he picked it up, the pages crumbled in his hands, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside was a small, rusted key and a note that simply read, "For the lost." Matt's eyes lit up with excitement. "We have to find out what this key opens," he exclaimed. Despite my reservations, I agreed. Our search led us to the basement, where we discovered an old trunk. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, Matt inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked open. Inside the trunk, we found a collection of photographs and letters detailing the life of the girl who went missing. As we sifted through the contents, a chilling realization dawned on us. The girl had been abducted and held captive in this very house. The final letter was a desperate plea for help, scrawled in shaky handwriting. Just then, the temperature in the room dropped, and a whisper seemed to float through the air. "Help me," it said. We froze, fear gripping us. Matt, always the brave one, called out, "Who's there?" The whisper grew louder, more insistent. "Help me," it repeated. We both knew we had to leave, but as we turned to run, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Panic set in as we struggled to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The whisper turned into a wail, filling the room with an unearthly sound. "Matt, we need to get out of here," I shouted, my voice shaking. But Matt was fixated on something in the corner of the room. "Do you see that?" he whispered, pointing. I turned to look and saw a faint, ghostly figure of a young girl. Her eyes were hollow, her face twisted in anguish. The ghost moved closer, her wail piercing our ears. "Why didn't you save me?" she cried.
Why didn't you save me?
Suddenly, everything went black. When I woke up, I was alone. The house was silent, the air still. I called out for Matt, but there was no answer. Frantically, I searched the house, but he was gone. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. I ran back home, trying to make sense of what had happened. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Matt never returned. The police conducted a search, but they found no trace of him. The abandoned house was sealed off, declared too dangerous to enter. Years passed, and the memory of that night haunted me. I moved away, trying to escape the past, but it always lingered in the back of my mind. One day, I received a letter with no return address. The handwriting was familiar. I tore it open, my hands trembling. It was a note from Matt. "Help me," it read. "I'm still here. Come back and save me." I knew I had to return to that house. The moment I stepped inside, the whispering began again. "Help me," it echoed through the halls. I followed the sound to the basement, where the trunk still lay. As I approached, the air grew colder. With a sense of dread, I opened the trunk. Inside, I found the same photographs and letters, but there was something new. A photograph of Matt, his face twisted in terror, his eyes pleading. The ghostly figure appeared again, her voice a chilling whisper. "He is mine now," she said, "and soon you will be too." As I tried to run, the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. The last thing I heard was Matt's voice, a desperate plea from beyond the grave. Why didn't you save me? The unsettling case of Luke Ruehlman. In the quiet suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio, the Ruehlman family lived an ordinary life. Erica and Nick Ruehlman cherished their young son, Luke, who was the light of their lives. Born in 2009, Luke was a bright and energetic child, always curious about the world around him. His laughter filled their home, and his playful antics brought endless joy to his parents. But as Luke approached his second birthday, Luke started to speak of things that seemed beyond the imagination of a typical toddler. One day, as he played with his toys, he casually mentioned a woman named Pam. "When I was a girl, I had black hair like this," he said, holding up a doll. Erica paused, a bit startled. "What do you mean, when you were a girl?" she asked. Luke looked up at her with innocent eyes. "I used to be Pam," he replied, matter-of-factly. At first, Erica dismissed it as childish fantasy. Children often have imaginary friends or create elaborate stories. But Luke's references to Pam became more frequent and detailed. He spoke about riding the train in Chicago, described tall buildings, and mentioned dying in a fire. "I died, went to heaven, and then I came back as Luke," he told his perplexed mother. The details he provided were unsettling. Luke described jumping out of a burning building to escape the flames, a scene that seemed far too vivid for a child who had never been exposed to such imagery. Concerned and intrigued, Erica decided to investigate. She began researching fires in Chicago that involved a woman named Pam. After some digging, she discovered the tragic story of Pamela Robinson, an African-American woman who had died in a fire at the Paxton Hotel in March 1993. The hotel fire was a significant event, resulting in the deaths of 19 people. Erica was stunned. How could her young son, who had never been to Chicago or heard of this incident, know these details? To test Luke's claims, Erica printed out photos of several women, including one of Pamela Robinson. Without giving him any context, she laid the pictures before him. "Do you recognize anyone?" she asked. Luke immediately pointed to Pamela's photo. "That's me," he said confidently. Chills ran down Erica's spine. The possibility that her son was recalling a past life seemed more real than ever. Luke continued to share more about Pam. He expressed a fondness for Stevie Wonder's music, particularly the song Higher Ground. Erica later learned that Pamela was indeed a fan of Stevie Wonder and loved dancing to his songs. Luke's behavior also reflected traits that seemed out of place for his age. He demonstrated dance moves characteristic of an adult woman and showed nurturing tendencies uncommon for a young boy. Family members observed these behaviors with a mix of fascination and unease. Seeking answers, the Ruehlmans reached out to Dr. Jim Tucker, a child psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, known for his research into children's past life memories. Dr. Tucker found Luke's case compelling due to the specific details and lack of prior exposure. The story gained national attention when it was featured on the television show The Ghost Inside My Child in 2014. Viewers were captivated by Luke's accounts. Though opinions varied, some believed it was a genuine case of reincarnation. Skeptics, however, offered alternative explanations, such as cryptomnesia, a psychological phenomenon where a person recalls information but believes it to be an original thought, not a memory. They suggested that Luke might have unconsciously absorbed details about Pamela Robinson from external sources, like television or conversations, without consciously remembering them. Others pointed to possible parental influence, proposing that his parents might have unintentionally reinforced his statements. As Luke grew older, his memories of being Pam began to fade, a pattern observed in other cases of children who report past life recollections. By the time he was 7, the vivid stories had mostly subsided, leaving his family with lingering questions and a profound experience that had changed their perspective on life and death. The Ruehlmans reflected on their journey with a mix of wonder and humility. They contemplated the mysteries of existence, the possibility of life beyond death, and the intricate workings of the human mind. While they remained protective of Luke's privacy, they hoped that sharing their story might encourage open-mindedness and further exploration into the unknown. To this day, the case of Luke Ruehlman remains one of the most intriguing accounts suggesting reincarnation. Whether one views it through a spiritual lens or seeks psychological explanations, Luke's story invites us to ponder the mysteries that lie beyond our current understanding.